Hi, I'm Mary Elizabeth Williams, and this is Patient. And I'm so happy today that I get to talk to Soraya Chemaly. She's a journalist, she's an activist, she is the author of one of my favorite books, and definitely my favorite book title of all time, Rage
Uh,
Becomes Her. She's also the author of The Resilience Myth, and her new book is called All We Want Is Everything: How We Dismantle Male Supremacy. So I heard that title and I just thought, get my crowbar out. I'm ready. I
oh,
am
yes, right.
so ready. And I can't wait to talk to you about this book. But I want to start with the question I love to start with. What was the healthcare experience that radicalized you?
Oh my God, definitely pregnancy and childbirth. Without a doubt. It's amazing what I put up with before that in retrospect, right? Did that happen to you?
Yes, yes. This is not about me, but I will say when I was
Yes.
2 weeks late with my second, and I had so many people say to me, my doctor wouldn't let me go that long.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, do you need you need permission for your own birth? My doctor wouldn't
Yeah.
let me, is
I
a
mean,
wild thing for a pregnant person to internalize.
I have, well, can I share this story? Yes, I had my own pregnancy experiences that were totally gobsmacking to me. One of which ended up with a doctor basically congratulating me for DIY obstetrics because I refused to take a certain medication for contractions. It was giving me palpitations. I had a heart monitor, I had contractions monitor. I had like none of the doctors, all of it, none of the doctors talk to each other. So I said, I am not on bed rest and I am not taking this medication. And this doctor was like, it's really wonderful to see someone advocate for themselves. And I was like, okay,
Right.
but shouldn't you all be talking to each other so that the drugs aren't causing the palpitations and the palpitations aren't causing the blah, blah, like nothing. And unfortunately, there she basically demanded that the doctor induce her and the doctor wouldn't. And she almost died and the baby died. My sister's baby.
I'm so sorry.
But it's, I think, happens to so many women that they're
Yes.
in this position where, frankly, a doctor, it used to be more men. Now, obstetrics, gynecology and obstetrics is a majority of women in the United States. But, they just are authorities. They have what you described, which is the ability to control your experience of pregnancy and birth.
Right. And to say we're going to do that, and you're in a, I think for a lot of us, even the most, I think I know, like I advocate for myself,
Right.
but you're in an out of like what feels like a very out of control situation often.
Well, I
And
mean, yeah, it's
And
crazy.
the idea that anything you do could jeopardize this vulnerable little person
Mm,
you're trying to bring into the world, of course you're going to be deferential. Of
right.
course. Of course you're not going to put up a fight because it's not about you.
Right.
It's about the baby.
But I mean, yeah, I will. You had two pregnancies, right?
Yeah.
Or that you have, and I did too.
Two
Well, I
two
had
pre
two
two
births.
two babies, one miscarriage.
I had two pregnancies, three babies. And so I was on bed rest with my singleton for the first pregnancy and was on bed rest for 3 very long months. And the day I was taken off of bed rest, all of my, like that week, everything baseline went back to normal. And then the second pregnancy, twins, high risk, they wanted to put me on bed rest and I refused. I was like, you have no reason. You have nothing you're telling me is a good reason. And that's when the heart monitor, contractions monitor, drugs. And I mean, it was wild, I have to say.
It's wild,
Um,
and it's wild for people who are educated. It's
right.
wild for people who feel like I know what I'm
Privileged
doing.
enough to have insurance.
I have
Like,
it exactly. But we know this is a country with a shockingly high neonatal and maternal death rate.
absolutely. And I was in a Catholic hospital.
Right.
And
So
that was the most worrisome thing to me.
tell me why. I know why, but tell me why.
I mean, I think we know, maybe people don't. I grew up Catholic. By the time I was 11 or 12, I was like, not for me, I'm out. My parents were respectful of that, which was really, I found out in retrospect, quite rare. But, the ethical standards of Catholic hospitals are maintained by the American bishops. And many studies in the last 20 years, the last decade, as hospitals have merged and as the Catholic Church has gobbled up hospitals, have shown that care of women, maternity care in particular, birthing care is degraded, and women are endangered in those hospitals because of anti-abortion beliefs that, of course, cut across all kinds of treatments for women.
Yeah, and I mean,
Ectopic pregnancies, like, it's just, the list is quite long. So
right. And of course, we could get into what this also does for gender affirming care, but if we just want to,
100%.
right, because they don't do it. They just won't do it.
Yeah.
And the way that is, I love the phrase you use, gobbled up. People don't
Mm-hmm.
know that this is
Yes.
happening, that the Catholic Church is
Yes.
gobbling up our hospital systems.
I mean, there are large geographies where there are no alternatives to Catholic hospitals in the United States. And I don't think probably most people give it a second thought if they're having an emergency, an obstetrics emergency, anything pregnancy related, they just want to get to a doctor and to an emergency room. And it just doesn't feel safe if
Yeah.
you're a woman who is aware of maybe the fact that your life won't be protected.
And guess what? You're in your blue state, in your blue city,
That's right.
and you think it's,
All good.
and then you go down to St. Bozo's for your obstetric care, and you might get a very rude awakening.
Right. And truly, every doctor I ever had was a very caring person. But I even encountered doctors who didn't realize what the limits were. Even doctors, until push comes to shove and critical cases are sort of escalated to the ethics board, can be surprised
Right,
because they're assuming certain things that they can't assume.
right. And it's too much for everyone. It's too much. And, I talked to you almost a year ago. I think it was the last time we spoke, was right after the election.
Yes.
And you said something to me that I have been thinking about a lot. You said, it's going to be bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you weren't the only person who said it. You
No, we
were
all
the,
know. Like,
you were
we know.
you are the only one who was right, but you have this new book coming out. You are there on the front lines of seeing what is going on, Soraya. Tell me a way that is bad that maybe I don't know or I didn't know how bad it is.
I mean, I think a couple of things. You also wrote about this. I know this, but for 15 years, a lot of us were writing about the criminalization of pregnancy in America, mainly affecting immigrant women, Black women, poor white women. And these women were being put in jail for the outcomes of their pregnancies related to any number of things. One woman fell down the stairs at her house, and a nurse reported her for possibly doing it on purpose. Another woman had drug addiction problems. Another woman was suicidal. And these were all kind of test cases. How far can we go with this? What kinds of laws can we do to entrap women and prosecute them for miscarriages? And I think that for the most part, most people just didn't care. They thought these are extremists, they're outliers. And even as these state laws were used abusively, increasingly over time, people still said it will never happen. It definitely won't affect me. As you just said, maybe I'm in a blue state. Maybe I have a really good private doctor. But they don't think about things like, do I have to travel for work while I'm pregnant? What if I miscarry in Texas? Do I take a job where I have to travel for work? Like, what will now we're at the point where what will my employer say or do if I reveal I'm taking birth control? I mean, these
Right.
are, it's not just, oh, a person who you might think is a bad individual for doing drugs, which is a lot of moralizing about drug addiction, right? It is every person who can get pregnant is on probation.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. And yes, sure, if you're in a blue state, chances are better. But these people have made no bones about going after birth control, and they are going after birth control, And so I just think most people shrugged it off. And we still see it. In fact, when you have guys like Ezra Klein saying we should have a big tent, and then he uses the word pro-life. And I'm like,
That
man,
guy,
your slip is
that
showing, right?
guy.
That is your slip is showing moment. I'm like, seriously? You actually use the words pro-life.
Yeah. That, don't get me
Nothing
st
else, nothing else coming out of your mouth. It's like,
no.
walk
No,
away.
I could turn we could turn this into an Klein rant
Crime.
set. Ezra Klein, little Freudian
You
slip
said,
there.
you said it. You said it.
I did. You know what? I'm going to call him that from now on.
I
Did you
know.
hear what Ezra Crime had to say? I think that's very Trumpian, right? We could do that.
I mean, you could do it. But I mean, he's just being roasted every
Yeah,
single day.
he really is.
And he's
He,
being roasted for all the things.
he's
And
being roasted on every spit out there. Yeah, for real. Like everybody hates him now. I think that's the fun thing is that everybody
I
can't
mean,
stand that
he
guy.
did his interview with C. Coates. I don't know if you watched it.
I
It
couldn't
was
bear to. I
awful.
go through very little of that.
I did watch it and it was really painful to watch, And I don't wish anyone in the public sphere harm. It's horrible. It's
No,
horrible to be in the public sphere
no, it's
and in
awful.
the sight lines. I understand all of that. But at some point, I think it's really important to stop talking.
This is where, Sarai, you just teed up the thing that I wanted to ask you
What
about.
is it?
The thing that is weighing on me. How much of this, I love that your book is called How to Dismantle Male Supremacy. I want to talk about that because I think a lot of us are so fucking tired right now. We're so tired of it. And we
Yeah,
feel like I can't look at my phone all day. I can't
right,
look at this all day. I don't
right.
I am in another country in no small part because I needed to just be away from that noise for
Yes,
a
for your own
while.
body and health.
Right. And I want to know how we do this responsibly. And you to me seem a great paragon of that because we want to be looking out for each other. We want to
Mhm.
dismantle male supremacy and white supremacy and all the other
Right.
supremacies we've got going. We want to do it. We need to know what the fuck they're doing to us.
Mhm.
And yet, the fire hose of different kinds of disasters coming at us every day is not good for us.
Right.
It's really, really not good. How do we how do
I
we
mean,
take it in without just being smothered under the weighted blanket of distress?
I think we're all trying to figure it out. And, it's interesting. The subtitle for my book was a source of contention for me and my editor because the publisher wanted it to read something like a guide to male supremacy. And I was like, I'm sorry, just hard no. It's already a small, cute book, which is a
It's a
whole,
girl's guide to male
it's a girl's guide
supremacy.
to male supremacy.
Male
But
supremacy for girls.
right. But I was like, no, the closest we're going to get to that is this, because in fact, I'm not using that phrase as a prescription for how we do it. I'm saying we are doing it. We have been doing it. But mainly as a function of male supremacy, we only recognize protest, rebellion, revolution, and change in what I think of as patriarchal time and in the ways that men express those things and recognize those things. And so a big part of my argument has to do with how technology, and I've spent literally 10 years immersed in the worst cesspools of tech, like writing about it, talking about it, being subjected to it. So I understand the badness of the tech. But we have used technology to take a bat, as you say, or a sledgehammer to the public private divide. Super important because the public private divide is used by white supremacist systems and patriarchal systems together to sequester, particularly the problems of women and the problems of women of color, especially into this private sphere, and to keep the public sphere in the realm of men, masculine experiences and power. And women for the last 20 years, culminating, I think, in Me Too and Black Lives Matter, said, no fucking way. We're not doing that. We're going to tell you everything. We are not going to have our bodies used against us. We're not going to allow the trajectory of rape stigma to fall on us. We're going to talk about everything: the pregnancy, the menopause, the rapes, the sexual assaults, the racism in our own neighborhoods, like everything. And that's really important, because you then come to really realize how that artificial divide, maintained, by the way, in traditional liberalism,
Oh, fuck yeah.
has, right, has how that divide is complicit in supremacist systems. And the technology, as bad as it is, as overwhelming as it is, has enabled us to do that. And we won't really understand, I don't think, the effects of that, another function of how we think about time, for a generation. We just won't, you
Yeah.
know? And so I personally, for me, I think that this is interesting. Authoritarians can use technical acceleration to their benefit, because they can move with executive power, they can make decisions, they can flood the zone, they can use the speed of media and technology to do all the things that they do. So the response to that is actually not to try and do the same thing, which frankly liberal techno utopians are also trying to do, but to create friction, drag, obstacles, and to realize that the change we are affecting is slow, gradual, and diffuse. It's not an inaction. We
Hmm.
need, but every time a woman says, I will no longer tolerate intimate inequality, she is making change.
I love that phrase. I love that phrase. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Intimate inequality.
Yeah.
Expand on that a little, because when you explained the concept to me, I thought, oh, that explains a lot.
Well, I mean, this is again comes back to this idea of a public-private divide, right? So feminism for a long time has been focused on gender equality. And I argue that phrase is male supremacist because, in fact, ultimately it's objective. And the way the public has perceived it is that as long as women get or have what men have had, then equality has been accomplished, right? And so the standard is still men and what they need or do or have or how they act. And that is male supremacist. But a large part of the panic and the backlash I think we're living with is the dawning realization around the world that was never the limit imposed by feminists or women, and that women are now having, just a small percentage of women have enough power to define what they want, redefine power, not be subject to the constraints of male standards. Calling out those standards is unfair. And that's a different ballgame. That is really the rejection of male supremacy. It goes beyond the framework of gender equality. And so in all of that, and this use of technology to get rid of that public-private divide, we can now really better understand and explain the way intimate equality in families, in heteropatriarchal relationships, in parenting, in care work, how that is related to professional imbalances, political inequality, and they operate dynamically to construct each other. You can't
Because
consider one without the other.
because as you've explained it, you can only marginalize women so much, because
Yes,
you can't deport us. You know what I
you
mean?
can't
You
deport
can't.
all women.
You can't. Like, you
Right.
have to still live under the same roof with us. Like, you have, like, the way that the patriarchy works, the way that intimate inequality works is we still live in your house. We still raise your sons. We still are your daughters. Like, no matter how, like that, and that is where the most, I think, insidious aspects of patriarchy get to all of us.
Right. It's baked
Because,
into our intimate lives and our needs and our care, right?
and
Our
our home,
care is
like,
implicated in that inequality.
and it's the home front. It's in our beds.
It's in our beds. That's exactly right. And the thing is, I think a lot of people have a tendency, they hear white supremacy and they hear male supremacy, or they hear racism and they hear sexism, and they categorize them as similar. And there are certain similarities, but the mechanisms that function in those realms are very different. So with racial discrimination and white supremacy, if you look at the historic treatment of indigenous people and Black people, the strategy is incarceration, separation, other like exclusion, and it's either eliminating entire populations or sequestering them. And you cannot do that because of reproduction with gender. The strategy, when you have to draw your oppressed person or your oppressor in has to be different. And
Right.
so that's how you end up with patriarchal benevolent sexism. We're going to protect you, we're going to put you on a pedestal. And that's really only works for white femininity. It doesn't work for Black and brown women, and then you can really start to see the complexity. And all I really am trying to do in this book is explain one critical and necessary pillar of oppression that routinely gets erased, right? So if you think about the way after the election, Nick Fuentes screamed, "Your body, my choice." Do you remember that? A
Oh, do I
hundred,
remember it? I'm
a
still
hundred, yeah,
fired up about it.
100 million views and reshares of that. 100 million, right? Mainstream media called him a white nationalist, which he is,
Sure.
but he was clearly articulating male supremacy, right? He's a white male supremacist. He is a patriarchal white nationalist. The language gets clunky. I mean, this is what, every Black intersectional feminist and womanist has been grappling with, this sprawling language of trying to explain this matrix of domination. But we have to use these words, and even like this god awful Republican chat that,
Oh,
this thing,
the Nazis?
the Nazis. And I'm looking through it and I'm looking at the way it's being covered. And yes, the chats are anti Semitic and racist, but they're also deeply, violently misogynistic in the way that rape is talked about and used to denigrate entire populations of people. And if we just keep excluding that in consideration, we will never really be able to address our crises. We have to come to terms with it.
We have to. And we have to do it in a manner that is attempting to be intersectional, at least.
Yeah,
And as you said, acknowledging that the stakes are different. The stakes are different for me as a white feminist than they are for someone
right,
else. Like they just are. And starting with understanding that and acknowledging that is I think, a huge
right.
part of getting our heads on straight and understanding that when we're in certain rooms, we're coming from different places. You're coming from a different place. If you're a
That's
woman of
right.
color, you're coming from a different place. If you are a queer woman, you're coming from a different place. If you're a trans woman, all of those things, and
All of those
allowing
things.
other people to say, my experience is different, right? Like my experience is
Right.
going to be different. It just is. I think all of that is huge. And it gives me hope that you are talking about these things, that you are getting us fired up about it, and that you're just I don't know, sorry. I always feel like you come at these issues with a really practical eye, with a problem-solving view, which I love. I love to solve a
Oh,
problem.
thank you. Yes.
If I were to ask you, like, what's one thing a person can do, any person, regardless of your gender, your color, your socioeconomic status, to
Hmm.
move things in a direction that's just a little less shitty?
That's such a good question. And I genuinely do think about it like every day. And there are a couple of things that have really occurred to me because we're all living through this. We're all trying. Some of us really are just trying to figure out how do we navigate this time, this environment, this, very complex situation that we're all in.
I'd call it a
And
shit show, but
it is a shit show.
your
I
language
tend to
works.
call it a clusterfuck. I was trying not to head in that direction, but I'm so glad that you did. But yeah, I mean, it's just hard. And I think there are a couple of things. One is I personally, when I write something, I don't know about you as a writer, I was talking to someone earlier today. When I write something, I am constantly aware of what I'm missing and not knowing what I'm missing. What perspective am I, am I deepening a harm? Am I ignoring something that's just blatantly obvious because of other people's experiences? And there is one example of that I always think about, and it is still, but it was really, I really think about 10, 15 years ago, this hit a sort of peak. The difference between feminists who sought carceral solutions to violence against women, and feminists, mainly Black women, who understood the relationship between that violence and carcerality and why abolitionism is so important. And I really had a growth trajectory. Probably, there was just a period where I was like, oh, of course. But I didn't have that, of course, for a while. I was like, yes, we need laws. We should be figuring out who these people are and they should be prosecuted. And it wasn't very long, but I definitely was like, oh, no, that's not the solution here for a variety. And I think we have to have a lot of those aha moments. And so I think seeking out other people's perspectives and listening to them. But also, what I think is important is understanding the power of all the microfeminisms that people are embracing: language, openness, saying all the things out loud that are going through your head, sitting with the discomfort that you create and understanding that it's not your problem. Those are important, just setting an example for children,
right?
letting them know that it's okay and that you can see them. You can tell usually with young children when they're at odds with their society, with their families, and just extending them the kindness of recognizing them and defending them. These are
Yeah.
just small everyday things you can do.
They matter. I think it matters if you're kind to another person.
I
I
totally
think
agree. Like,
being in a country where people are just on a base level polite and
yeah,
ask you how you are has made like it is micro
isn't it
kindnesses.
shocking?
It is shocking. It is
Yeah, it
shocking
is.
to just have someone like look you in the eye when you're buying your groceries and say, hiya, how are you today? Is like,
Yeah,
whoa, I feel like the world feels like a better place when you do that to another human being. And it doesn't change mass incarceration. It doesn't change mass deportation. It doesn't change the National Guard attacking our cities. And yet, it's these small things that I think also do keep us a little bit saner and a little bit more gentle
right.
in the kind of world we want to be. Like I want to be in a world that's gentler. I really
Yeah,
do.
and I think too that part of that kindness is, and we could talk about this forever, but decentering yourself. I mean, men are really struggling with their decentering in culture. That's
Yeah,
what's happening,
that
right?
is
And it's happening everywhere. And it's
white people
happening,
are like, wait,
white
everything
people,
is not for
right.
me? Like it really is. It's just like everything
It
is
it
not about me. Like I have to look at a movie and it doesn't have white
it
people
doesn't have
in
white people in it. And I think part of that is that the entitlement of the dominant culture is that you have this idea that you are the standard and that you are universalized. And that's really not good for you or other people. And so I think that thinking about that is important. If you are a person of good conscience, you want to think, but my experience is not the experience.
Right.
And that opens the door to considering other people's experiences.
I'm just gonna end with read some fucking literature. Like, read
Right.
some fucking
Something men are
literature.
not doing.
Read a
Right. I
fucking
mean,
book. Like, read a novel. And,
men's flight.
right? Like, seriously, read a fucking novel and maybe it'll make you understand the human condition better than another stupid book by some stupid CEO. I just beg of you, read a
You're
fucking
good.
novel, but also read Soraya Chemaly. I love
Oh,
your books
thank
so
you.
much. I love you so much. I'm so happy that we get to talk to each other and just rage out
It's
for a little
always
while.
great. I know. It's so good to
It's
see.
always so good. It's always so fucking good. You just energize me and get me pumped for the fight and make me feel like we can make a change. And that's
We are
we
making change.
are.
That's
We
what we have
are.
to remember. We've
And
made
our
immense
kids are.
change. Kids are really making, especially, I'm sad to say, especially the girls.
I
The
just
girls are causing so much angst,
they
man.
are.
I'm like,
They're out there causing trouble and
they're just living their lives. This
I
is the
live
thing,
for it.
though.
They don't want to please anybody and I'm just like, yum,
It's
it's
still better.
oh, it's awesome.
Yeah,
Man, if I'd been like that at 21, whew,
I
the
know, right?
therapy I could have saved myself.
Right?
But you know what? The therapy was worth it anyway. Money
It
well
is.
spent, I
It's
assure you.
true.
All right, the book, I'm going to say it one more time. It's called All We Want Is Everything. How We Dismantle Male Supremacy. Let's go dismantle some male supremacy, Soraya.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.